Hello everyone, I'm Justin Brady, and as promised, we're joined by Julie Teigland, the Area Managing Partner of EY Europe, Middle East, India, and Africa. Thanks for being here, Julie.
It's a pleasure.
Obviously, really appreciate your sponsorship of the Global Peter Drucker Forum. Thank you so much. One of the things we wanted to do this year is ask our sponsors, who are very connected in their own communities, like, what are the big questions you're getting about 2025? And we wanted to give those all to you. So we'll start this off with transformation, that topic. Business environment, as you know, is kind of nutty, a little bit complex.
Totally changing. Totally changing.
Nonsense. Everything's totally normal and calm. So change is being driven really fast. We have technology now, we have AI, we have climate concerns, global political, economic instability. How do business leaders transform to shape that future and do it with confidence?
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually a really tough question, because when everything around you is moving at pace, where do you go? What do you do? And how do you prioritize? And my advice is, one, acknowledge the environment that you're in. If everything else is spinning, you have to realize that you're going to need to change. Take a step back, think about that perspective, and allow yourself to reinvent. And when I say that, I mean not only looking at your own company, your business model, but looking at the business model and the changes systematically across your ecosystem. Today's play for transformation is not just acknowledging what your company is doing, but acknowledging where the entire ecosystem is going and how they need to rapidly change. Now, there's a few things that I want to talk about, Justin. I think when we talk about transformation, a lot of people confuse transformation with implementing technology.
That's true.
It's one piece of it, but it's definitely not alone. Change means rethinking the business model, checking the business strategy, ensuring that you've got talent on board, and making sure that the human is at the center of every transformation. So if I was going to give some top tips for CEOs, it would be allow yourself to reimagine. Reimagine not only your business model for the future, but look at the entire ecosystem. Ensure that any plan you put in place puts human at the center, leverages the benefit of technology, and moves at pace.
I'm going to ask about putting humans at the center, because it's kind of what I would call deceptively simple. Maybe that's not the right way to say it, but it sounds really simple.
But it's very hard.
Yes, but I feel like a lot of people don't do it or don't understand it. But you mentioned talent. So within the disruption is navigating skills shortages.
Yep.
So how do we do that? Like, well, what's the best case? What's the best advice for navigating these skills shortages?
Understand what you need, and look what's in your current base that you can upskill or reskill. Today's world is changing so fast. Often the skills that we need are within the companies today. They just require upskilling and a release in order to be able to capitalize on those. So many companies right now are looking, how can they get great talent, leverage the talent that they have, but put them in new positions. Mobility is part of that, upskilling is part of that, changing their experiences, job sharing and exchange, to really broaden the base of what's out there. And I think that's absolutely critical.
And a lot of organizations, as you kind of indicate, aren't doing that. They're not upskilling, they're not training. Where's the breakdown? Are they just fearful that people are going to leave? Where's the breakdown?
I think the breakdown today, because of all the volatility, a focus on short-term returns, ensuring that we're squeezing the lemon for the profits that we need, as opposed to investing for the future and driving that transformation. CEOs that are planning ahead are thinking, how can they invest for the future? Where do they go? How do they drive that transformation?
You have this really, I said earlier that we want to talk about human first. So you have some research at EY about human first organizations are 2.6 times more likely to succeed. So I know a lot of leaders listen to that and they say, I want to be 2.6%. I want to be 2.6 times more likely to succeed. So what is a human first organization? Why aren't all companies human first organizations? What's the difference? What do they look like?
You know what? I feel that the concept of technology has become so overarching. People are interested in getting the advantages of that technology without making sure that they're putting the human, either their employee, their customer, or their stakeholder, at the center of their transformation. And that means making sure that they know what's the purpose, where are we going, what's the impact, how does it affect me, and how does it bring me longer-term results by being closer connected to both of those, building trust along the way. If you set those objectives for your transformation, you will be more successful than just objectives that look at, did you implement the latest technology? Have you rolled it out? In fact, I could share lots of very scary statistics on how many companies have rolled out technology plays thinking they're being innovative, but the technology doesn't get leveraged, it doesn't get used, the processes don't get changed. And so they're not really driving transformation, they're doing technology rollout. There's a big difference between those two. Human at the center means understanding the purpose, the impact, and driving that along the way.
I know a lot of leaders probably hear that though, and they say, but Julie, I feel like I'm doing that. What am I missing? So is there some type of way to measure that? Is there a way to take the temperature of the organization? Is there a way to hold up a mirror to some of these leaders and they're like, oh, that's what I'm not doing?
And that's a lot of what we recommend, using feedback loops for customers, understanding feedback loops for employees. Where are you now? Where are you going? And measuring that, being very thoughtful about that measurement and concrete. How does it impact the KPIs? And those KPIs have changed from customer satisfaction, customer loyalty, employee engagement, from maybe how many units did you roll out over what period of time?
So I want to talk about sustainability a little bit. I'm going to skip a little bit because you were talking about scaling. Yeah, truthfully, I can't even remember what you said, but it triggered this. But sustainability, you wrote this in one of the, I don't know which piece it was. I read it, I think like 10 pieces you wrote, something like that.
Okay.
But 70% of organizations are actually getting a return, like a business return on their sustainability. It's about, you were talking about organizational transformation. So.
Absolutely, sustainability is a great driver of that.
Yeah, and so 70% of organizations, like, I think most people are still in the mindset that this is something we're going to take a hit on as a leader. So 70%, that's significant. What are they doing?
They're changing the paradigm from saying, sustainability. When people talk about sustainability, they're thinking of the reporting guidelines, they're thinking of regulation, they're thinking of all the things we can't. If we dare to make a paradigm shift that says we're going to think now about what it could be, what the organization could be, and how we could drive more value for our customers, being sustainable, how we could change our supply chain to be more efficient, that's where the value is driven. It's on driving that transparency and the changes, the transformation of the business model that are driving true long-term value. That's harder than just answering the question on reporting.
Yeah.
That's a burden.
Right.
But redesigning the business model to drive more customer advantage, different products, different logistics, different outcomes, that's where value is. And that's where we want to see organizations go. I feel, especially in Europe, Justin, I feel like we're treating sustainability as a way that we're going to regulate ourselves through transformation.
Yeah.
That's never going to be successful.
I'm glad you brought that up because Europe's kind of in a tight spot right now, as you know. The European Council Strategic Agenda for 2024 to 2029 prioritizes building a prosperous and competitive Europe. That's prosperous. But economic data and survey data you have kind of tells a grim story. The EY found foreign direct investment in Europe fell 4% annually in 2023. This is the first decline since 2020. So how can Europe actually achieve that vision? Like, what are they doing wrong?
I tell you, it's the regulatory burdens that they're putting on companies that have gotten excessive. There's old adages that say, strong regulation builds strong companies. And Justin, there's some truth to that, but the honest fact is it's got to be doable. It's got to be doable in a pace that's logical. And I think Europe needs to kind of shift gears. I'm not saying get rid of all of the regulation, but I'm saying lighten the load to make the focus more on how we can capture productivity gains as opposed to just following compliance rules. And I think we've got a real urgent call now for cutting red tape. Now, I have no illusions. I don't think government's going to be able to do that alone. I think business needs to lean in and help by really raising the voice. What could change? How do we turn it to an opportunity instead of just a compliance challenge?
And you have some really good survey data. I think two big concerns came out of this survey, which aligns exactly with what you're saying. The need for regulatory balance and the desire to create a fertile environment for tech and AI businesses. And so this is, of course, the big core concern, right? Because they want to attract tech and AI businesses, but on the other hand, they made national headlines for being the first to regulate everything. And so the tech community is kind of like, first to regulate's not, that's not exciting. Like that's just going to push us backwards. So how do we find a balance there?
Well, I think there's a lot of work streams in place now with the new EU minister to lighten the loads, try to scale back, pace the regulation a little bit more, but also drive things that drive competitiveness, like the European Capital Markets Union. The whole report of Minister Draghi gives us a great roadmap for how to do it. Justin, I have to say, we have to make sure that capital is not the only constraint, that we really show real intent to be able to do this. I think we know what's got to be done. We need the lawmakers now to step up and help us deregulate in a way that promotes more innovation, leverages technology, and allows us, I'll come back to it, to put human at the center.
Yeah, absolutely. So your recommendation or recommendation of EY is kind of like, hey, like where your heart's at, love where your head's at, but let's maybe bring these AI regulations back a little bit. It was a little too far, a little too fast.
That's exactly what our recommendation is. We're not saying we're against it. We know we need regulation to help put up the guardrails. But let's make sure those guardrails act as brakes when you're going fast around the corner and not full as roadblocks. There's a big difference there. Too much too fast is a roadblock. Brakes make us healthier. We need that.
So EY has a bunch of recommendations, I think 9 in total, but obviously we can't go over all 9. So what are some of the core recommendations getting beyond, I mean, maybe it does include AI, but what are some of the more broad recommendations to make Europe more competitive and prosperous? As an American, I mean, I want Europe to be insanely competitive and prosperous because that pushes my own country to be aggressive.
The bar.
Yeah, so what are some of the big, probably final note to end it on, what are some of those really, really big ones? Let's hit on a couple of them.
Well, we talked about the red tape and the regulation.
Yes, yeah.
Let me go to the reskilling of people.
Absolutely.
And we need an education system that promotes reskilling, upskilling, and skilling, especially around technology and data, the investment in STEM, the ability to bring all types of diverse talents together to be able to do that. We think that's a big productivity driver. And when we look at the results of all of our studies, we know that we've gotten our levels of FDI in the past because Europe has such a fantastically talented workforce. We need to keep investing in that. So some of our recommendations are, hey, keep that focus on getting the education system right.
Yeah, and the upskilling is a big one.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people right now are fearful that, and we hear this constantly, especially at this conference right now. I remember last year, we kind of touched on AI. This year, everyone's talking about AI. And so upskilling right now is really, really crucial because AI is here. It's actually, from what I'm hearing, it's not as crazy of an upskilling challenge as we initially thought.
It's not that bad. And what I worry about, there's a whole lot of hype everywhere. AI is everywhere now.
Yeah.
Job loss, job loss,
Yeah,
job
yeah.
loss.
Fear.
We've got to get people to realize, actually, the only time you're going to be fearful about losing your job about AI is if you don't understand it.
Don't try it.
You don't try it. Complementing, augmenting. I've even argued AI should not be artificial intelligence. It's like augmented intelligence.
Yeah.
It's to help you get better. That's where we've got to realize that's the benefit.
That is a good place to use it. Leave it. That is a good place to leave it. Yeah, jump into AI. If you're not using it right now, you absolutely need to. Julie Teigland, Area Managing Partner of EY Europe, Middle East, India, Africa. I'm Justin Brady. Stick with us. This is Drucker Forum TV.